Okay, girlies, let's go over how to use and set up a Smith machine. So first thing you want to do is set up the Smith machine bar at the right height relative to your body height and relative to whatever exercise you're doing. So if you're doing a squat, split squat, or a lunge, anything like that, you want to have the bar set up just around your shoulder height, because this way it's going to be super easy for you to crawl under the bar, and then all you have to do is push the clip up and away, and you're automatically in that starting position. Versus if you had the bar set up all the way up here, then to get into starting position, you would have to go onto your tippy toes and then clip it up and go into starting position, which is not as ideal, especially if there's like a super heavy weight on here. So right around that shoulder height is that sweet spot for squat, split squats, lunges. If you were doing something like a Romanian deadlift, in this case, you'd obviously want to have it a little bit lower so that you could easily just take your arms, bend your elbows a little bit, and then you're right in that starting position. So it's going to depend on the movement that we're doing. Now, to hook and unhook your Smith machine bar, all you need to do is pull the hook away from the clip by just kind of flicking the bar away with your wrists like this, and then you can move it down or up or wherever you need it to be, and then you just have to flick your wrists back forward and let it rehook. To set up your safety bar, you're gonna see these little clippies at the bottom here. All you have to do is just drag it up and then try to clip it to wherever height you think you would be at the bottom of that movement. So for example, if I'm doing a squat, and if I were to fail the squat and bail, I'd fail around this height, right? So in this case, I'd wanna set mine up maybe just a little bit higher than that. And you can always test it without any load on there to make sure it's set up at the right height for your body before you actually start the loaded variation. So let's test this out here and see what would happen if I failed. I were to go down, 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 and then I needed to fail here. Then you can see it catches the bar right behind me. Now, to load our Smith machine, you're gonna see a bunch of plates usually lined up right along the side. You're just gonna grab your plate and slip it right on the same way you would for a classic barbell. And then if you're using an angled Smith machine like mine here, you might be wondering, what direction should I be facing? It's going to depend on what muscle you're trying to target and what exercise you're doing. So let's use the example of a squat. If I have programmed for you a quad bias squat, what this means is that we want to have our torso more upright, and we want to be going deeper into knee flexion. We want to be getting that forward knee drive so we can put more stretch and tension onto our quads. So ideally, we want the tension traveling in the direction of our quads. So in this case, I'm going to be facing the same direction that the Smith machine is angled towards, because then when I go down, you can see that the Smith machine bar and the load is traveling in the direction of my quads. So I'm gonna be loading up my quads really nicely here and getting deep into that knee flexion. On the other hand, let's say you wanted to do a glute-focused squat. So we want to be targeting more of our glutes and hips, and we want to be having a more vertical shin at the bottom, leaning our torso more forward as we push our hips back. In this case, I'd face the opposite way, because then as I go down, now you can see the bar is traveling in the direction of my glutes and hips, and I'm gonna be loading those muscles up really nicely. I'm also able to lean my torso slightly forward here, and my shins are more vertical at the bottom. So there's less knee flexion, less stretch on the quads, and more hip flexion, AKA more stretch on the glutes. If we wanna do a glute biased reverse lunge or split squat, we wanna also be facing in the opposite direction that the angle is moving towards, so that the bar, as we go down, is traveling in the direction of our hips. We're getting nice and deep into that hip flexion and loading our glutes nicely. Versus if I wanted to do a quad bias split squat, in this case, I would face the same direction of the angle so that, again, the bar is traveling in the direction of my quads, and I'm getting more stretch on the quads, more knee flexion, and then we're gonna be loading those up really nicely.